Good morning, Cindy. How
Good
are you?
morning, Ted.
How are you?
I'm good. Where have you been traveling lately?
Uh,
All over?
I was sort of not enjoying COVID, and now I'm back to being on the road, and I'm not enjoying that either. So it's good morning, Rob. How are you?
Good, Ted. How you doing? Hi, Cindy.
Good.
Hey,
I had a Delta flight from Chicago to Boston, connected in LaGuardia. I don't know. And starting in the morning, before I was leaving in the afternoon, I got 26 texts about how Delta had messed up the flights or they were late or whatever. And it got so frustrating. By the time I got to Chicago, I just bought another ticket on American and flew home.
oh God. I'm
I-
sorry. That's awful.
I got off the plane and I was sitting next to another big guy in our aisle, and he goes, "Flying isn't fun anymore." And I said, "No, no, it's not."
No, definitely not. Oh,
Well,
geez.
yeah.
I don't even want to think about it. I'm going to, I mean, the good news is I'm going to Florida on Sunday, but I just dread the airplane situation. Then they're saying it's going to rain on Saturday, big rain.
Oh, well, in
In
Florida?
Yeah,
Or
no, here in Boston. So
Oh, in
my
Boston
flight's-
on Saturday.
My flight's on Sunday morning
On Sunday
And
morning. Oh,
where,
wow.
where in Florida are you going, Rob?
to Hutchinson Island, Stewart, which is just north.
Oh,
of
Stewart area. I know that. Yeah.
It's part
My
of,
brother-in-law's from Stewart.
yeah. So you just fly
That'll be
away to Palm
pretty.
Beach. He said, yeah, oh, it's great. We go there almost every year. So it's at this time of year, the ocean's warm and the
Yeah.
beach is good. We're big beach people. So,
That's
You go
great.
fishing down there too?
pardon?
Go fishing?
No. Just we're just about everything else, but
Good for you.
but,
Hey, Cindy, thank you for that. Excellent.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're being
great.
way too gracious. It's it's a lot of like just thoughts thrown on paper at the moment. It will be really helpful to talk through it.
Yeah. Yeah,
For sure at some point.
good. Yeah, Steve called me a few minutes ago. He's running a little late from another meeting. So when we get more people here, he said, "Why don't you guys go ahead and start?" And then
Tom Mead is not going to be here.
Tom is not? Okay. All right. Great.
But we need a quorum, right? So we got to have
Yeah, I
one
think we
more
just
person,
need one more person and we'll be okay. Yeah.
either David or Diane or somebody.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's just as well. Then we can, you, Ted, you and I can have some time to work on this a little more, and then maybe it'll be more ready for prime time by
Yeah,
the
no
time we meet
problem.
again in April.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some key points that became clear to me after we were at the CPC meeting on Monday.
Good. Sorry I missed that. I hope I'm sure we'll catch up on how it went, but
Yeah, Steve asked me to join him, but of course,
good.
I let Steve run the show. He knows this stuff backwards and forwards far better than I. So I was more there, I think, as an observer and kind of watching the dynamics on the committee that has changed a bit since they have a number of new members as well. So
Oh, good. Well,
there's
that's
a little
good.
bit of a different feel with it.
Oh, that's great.
So Cindy, I saw a friend of yours at the dump on Sunday getting signatures. You're the fellow that's running for the Water Commission.
Oh, who is that? Oh, John Steinmetz, maybe?
Yeah, John. Yeah.
Oh, is he running? Oh, good.
Yeah, no, he's been on it for
As
quite a
he
while.
says, he's running on. No, he's running without any opposition, but he still has to get signatures.
Yeah.
So as we all know from living in Cohasset, one of the best places to get signatures is be at the dump on the
At
weekend.
the dump.
Yeah.
Yeah, he lived up the street from us for many years, and we worked together on the CEF also.
Yeah.
Been a very good public citizen.
Now, the minute I said I was on this housing committee, oh no, well, you know Cindy. I said yes.
That's good. I see Cindy Amara has joined us. That's great. Rob, I like that pillow on your chair. Where did
Yes,
you get an entering Cohasset pillow? That's cool.
Yeah. Forget where we got that. Then we got the candles. We've seen the candles that sell like at the Christian shop that have the towns on them, Cohasset and
Yeah.
Scituate and Marshfield and all that. I don't think that's there though.
Good.
I got just to the other side here. I got it's one of two family rooms. Got a bumper pool table.
Oh, and grandchildren?
Yeah, but that's not why we have it.
Oh
We
no.
had it before the grandchildren.
Very good. Better, even better.
Yeah.
I was just sending off, I have a really dear friend who turned 60 on April 1st. And her sister organized she had her friends send a whole bunch of gifts to her sister, and then she's putting them all together and shipping them off to Beijing, where she works at the embassy.
Wow.
And
Oh,
I was collecting as many local things from here as possible. So she's got, thinking of the anchor, little Cohasset with the rose compass and those kinds of things. So
Yes.
just so you don't lose your sense of direction.
That's right.
yeah.
That's right.
Has your friend been at that embassy long?
She's been there before.
Yeah.
And she just got reassigned. She went out shortly after Christmas.
Oh,
And
wow.
I mean, the quarantine aspects to get into China is insane.
Yeah.
How about the
Yeah.
comfort? How about the comfort level today of working in an embassy such as that country?
Actually, I mean, she's a China specialist, so for her, I think she's the comments that she sent back. I think she's really loving it. She's
Is she
been
Asian?
brilliant, and
Is
we
she-
are
is she
lucky to
Asian?
have her there. As U.S.
Yeah.
citizens, she's one of the best people who could be there right now.
Is she
She
Asian
may-
now?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Rob?
I said, is she Asian?
Nope,
Oh, okay.
nope.
She
She's
may
a-
know a friend of mine. I had a longtime friend that I worked many years ago at the Commerce Department named Sarah Kemp. And
Ah.
so you'll have to ask your friend if she knows Sarah Kemp.
Uh,
Sarah's been in the Beijing U.S. Embassy or consulates around the area for 20 years, in and out, raised her
I'll bet
family
she
there.
does.
Yeah,
Because we were in our discussion club, we were looking at China, and Susan Thornton, has been at Yale, and she's follow a lot of her writings. She was in the Foreign Service for a while, and so she was meeting up with my friend as well. But so if they've been, cycling through there, I'll bet she knows her. So
I bet
Susan
she does.
Kemp.
Susan Kemp. Yep. I see. Is that Steve there?
Yep, I'm here. I'm
All right.
sorry. I had to dial in. I've got on top of everything else, I'm having some problems with my computer here at the office. So
No problem. We're waiting. So let's see. Lauren is not here, but just so you can see, we have both Cindy's, Cindy Amara and Cindy Matheson. We have Rob Henry, myself, you. So we have a quorum for the board.
all right.
But I don't know how to let, and I suspect that maybe Rob Jeffers is out in a holding room or something, but
I don't know. I don't know who's conducting this meeting. That's
Yeah.
that typically Lauren is the Lauren, and before her Jen was the conduct of the meeting.
I thought Lauren said, I can't remember the name. She said that some gal was going to be responsible for.
No, it was John Hallen is what came through on her.
oh, it did.
message.
Okay.
John
No,
says
no.
he can't make the meeting. I talked to him on what's
Okay.
today? Today is Wednesday. I talked to John on Friday of last week.
Ah,
This is I got to tell you, this is a total shit show. And this is being recorded, so I hope that posterity gets this. We were allegedly supposed to be in front of the selectmen last night. We found out about it at 5:35.
what?
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. We were on the agenda. No one bothered to tell us. And I this is fine. I would. This underscores the basis for wanting to meet live and in person.
Yeah.
But if we're going to grind to a halt because someone's going on vacation, listen, I don't have a problem with vacations or anything else. But there is apparently a distinct lack of communication taking place within the walls of City Hall. So I apologize for this, guys. I don't know. I can't. On top of everything else, I'm having a hard time with my own computer. But I don't detect on this that I am the host of the meeting.
Okay.
I don't know who is.
So let's,
Problem must be not having Jen Oram replaced.
yeah, I'm gonna send Rob Jeffers a note with this link in case he can, if he's on another one and we can't tell, then he can join on here with us. So let me do that. But
Okay.
we have a quorum, so why don't we just take a roll call and we'll,
Can I ask Steve a question before you do that? Steve, when you say you just found out, did you even know what the topic was? Did they even tell you what the topic was at 5:30?
No, it was supposed to be a reconnection with respect to the land transfer.
Yeah.
It's not a small thing.
That's exactly.
So-
right. Yeah.
So we're pushed off to the next meeting. I was pretty distinct in my disapproval of the way
Yeah.
things were being
I see,
conducted.
I've been
So,
doing this business of the, getting the meetings live, and I think it's time. I mean, there's no reason not to do it now.
Right.
With this current situation of COVID, and we can still be careful, but I think that's what has to happen.
well, I don't disagree with you. Anyway, I think Ted's gone. Ted, are you still here?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I'm just sending
Okay.
a note off to Rob Jeffers. Yeah.
All right, so I'll start with you, Ted, just so you can say aye. This is the March 9, 2022 Cohasset Affordable Housing Trust meeting. We do have a quorum, so I'd like to take a roll call to initiate this meeting, starting with Ted Carr.
Ted Carr, aye.
Rob Jeffers. I'm sorry. Rob Henry.
Aye.
And Cindy Matheson.
Cindy Matheson, I here.
Steve Gomer present as well. So the meeting's underway. And Cindy Amara, do we have you with us as well?
Yes, she's there.
Yes, I'm here as well.
Okay. Hi, Cindy. Nice
Hi,
to talk
how
to
are
you.
you?
I tell you what, given that we've got a bit of chaos, may I propose by way of a motion that we treat the agenda in an expedient fashion rather than waiting for specific members to appear.
Yes.
That's my motion.
Second.
Second? Okay. By roll, Cindy Matheson.
Cindy Matheson, I.
Okay. Rob Henry.
Rob Henry, aye.
Ted Carr.
Aye. Carr.
And Steve Gomer, aye. And by the way, I know I was pretty sure that that Tom was supposed to be here too, but I don't see
No,
him.
he's, Steve, he sent you and I, excuse me, an email. He did not get the pipeline thing. And, you know, he and I are working on that, and he's had all these difficulties since the last meeting. He kept saying he's going to get it to me and get it to me. So finally, at 6:30 this morning, he sent it out. But he sent you a copy, and he is not going to be here at the meeting because he's in some unbelievable project. He's actually going to Dubai. I don't know if it said tomorrow or whatever, and then not be back until the week of the 21st. But he did send out,
Wow.
and we can, if it's on the agenda, I mean, he did send out some good information. It's just that it's so, it gets so late that I didn't even see it till 7:30. But I do have some of it there. So if you want to go over it briefly, I can even read what was on there. It's not that long, and explain what he has. So at least it's not a wasted effort at this point, and we just have to build on it.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Well, that's coming up on the agenda, so we will tackle that. I'm gonna skip over Rob Jeffers at the moment since he's not with us. I did talk with. Yes, Ted.
Sorry, Steve. Steve, I'll take the notes today for the meeting as well.
Who's better than you? But I got to tell you,
just about everybody, Steve.
I got to tell you, Cindy Matheson set the standard last month on minutes. They were very impressive. So if you want a template,
I'm taking them anyway because they help me process things. So if you'd like me to do, I'm happy to do that, Ted.
If you don't, that would be great. Since
it's no problem. It's a habit I have, so I mean, just go with it.
I got to tell you, I was embarrassed when I read the minutes. I said, "We talked about that? We did." So
you found some important additions though that I missed. So it's a team effort.
All right. So Rob Hallen was supposed to meet with us today. He'd contacted me last week and said he could not, but he was happy to have a conversation, just reviewing projects as they stood. So I will share with you the information that I had received from John. 1 Pleasant Street is coming up for an application, and their intent, I believe, John said, was to have a total of 15 apartments. And as a result, I believe that at least 3, possibly 4 of those could be deed restricted as affordable. Now, One Pleasant Street for for all of you. You remember where the vet used to be in the village?
Mhm.
And the
Yes.
tea shop, right?
Yep.
Flag store. That's One Pleasant. Apparently, the plan that the developer has proposed is to raise the current structure and reconstruct.
There's some,
Okay. So that's an interesting piece, one that we were, I suppose, tangentially aware of, but now apparently the developer is coming forward with a specific proposal for the planning board to consider. And John simply clued me in on the broad details as they would affect us. As my understanding, it's a mixed use. It's intended to be a mixed use development, apartments on the second floor.
Yeah, Steve, this is where a lot of business offices, like it used to be an old antique store there, and then
I think so. I think so, Rob.
An architect there, interior designers there. It's that building. It's a funny shaped building, right?
It's kind of a funny shaped building. It looks like it might have been at one time an old Feed and Grain or something like that.
Yeah,
But it abuts the west side of the railroad tracks.
right, exactly. Yeah, that's the building, and it's also next to the little restaurant there, the takeout place.
Exactly. It abuts all of that.
I call it Fancy Feast. It's the name of cat food, but it's something like that.
Yeah. So that's project number one. Project number two, 147 South Main Street. You might remember this was the garage that had burned down, and with the one to which we've committed $15,000 in increments of $5,000 apiece. John pointed out that they've already received 1 6-month extension on their 2-year permit, right? And at this point, they have not sought another extension, but they are into that 6-month piece now. So in other words, at the end of that 6-month extension, the building permit itself will expire, and they would have to go through the process again.
Is the developer of that, is that public information?
Yeah.
What's the name?
And for the life of me, I'm trying to draw from my memory banks.
Again, it's from what Tom prepared. He didn't have the answer on that one. Sorry, this was I could fill in the blank. I don't remember.
This is the one. I'm trying to remember the name of the developer, but he's been praised for being highly cooperative, and maybe that's not the best word for it, but
it's going to be in the notes somewhere. I don't have the notes. It was an odd name. It was not a.
it would be in that document where we signed, where Steve signed for the release of the $15,000 in $5,000 increments.
Not easy like Carr and Henry.
I'm looking for it now. I'll see if I can come up with it.
So in any case, we have that as something we need to attend to. I think probably the best approach, in my estimation, is to kick it back to the steering committee and just ask them to get an update directly from the developer.
Okay, let's see. I have John Shivo at Jack Conway.
That's it, Shivo. Shivo.
S. Oh, you spell that, Ted?
SCHIAVO. First name John, and he has a Jack Conway Realty email address, JSCHIAVO@jackconway.com. Says, this is, we did the, I found the letter, Lauren had written him a note and copied us about sharing the letter that we had sent.
Right, that's the one, yeah.
The trust gift, yeah, that's it. Affordable housing trust gift, yep.
Okay. So, as I said, I think the best approach here is to take this back to the steering committee to engage with Shivo and find out what's going on. This is an important thing from my perspective because we have the capability to do more. And I'm not proposing that we open our wallets all the way, but typically, if something's delayed this long, it's a financing issue.
Mhm.
Okay, and that might be the case, and it may or may not be worth our getting engaged. But if we understand what the delay is, and we have a way of participating in a solution to it, I think we ought to at least entertain what that is. At the moment, we don't know anything other than they're running late on the clock.
Mhm.
Okay. So we need to find out additional information. This is a project that was brought forward by the steering committee. They've been enthusiastic about it, and they've been very knowledgeable up to this point about it. And I think this is probably our best route as opposed to trying to forge new ground on our own. Comments?
I think that's right.
That's-
You
that's
wanna-
good.
You want to send it back to those guys or?
Yeah. I mean, and after this meeting, I can give Jeffers a call directly,
Okay.
assuming that my phone works.
Good.
Okay. So next item on that conversation agenda was 390 CJC. Hallen pointed out that in their on their punch list still is a hookup to septic. The developer is building the sewer line to run up Sawyer Street. And I'm sorry, I take it back. I think they finally agreed to coming down 3A. In any case, the developer has committed to building the line according to the specifications defined by the Sewer Commission and at their own cost. That will eventually be the permanent wastewater solution for, as I understand it, the entire plaza. But nonetheless, without it, the existing structure won't function long term. In the meantime, the DEP apparently has allowed a septic hookup for the purpose of gaining an occupancy permit for the apartments. The septic hookup has different requirements associated with it, including what amounts to, I think, tight tank provisions. So in other words, there'll be a regular pumping. But the fact of the matter is there's a solution. So at this point, the developer still needs to hook up the septic. He has some site work to do around the building, and there was one additional, though. He also needs a water hookup. That's right. And he's not going to, it doesn't make any sense to do the water hookup until you have a septic hooked up. So those are the three primary tasks at hand. And that sounds like a much less formidable position than the one I understood existed. So those units should come online.
Great.
Okay. Other than that, John had nothing to say about the latest initiative, which has the selectmen in a tizzy. One that I think that we need to get educated on fairly quickly, and that is the state initiative that it appears to dictate a minimum, a minimum number of units surrounding transportation hubs. And if you look at the way that lays out, the directive effectively points to Cohasset as being required or should be required to have some 700 units. And this is not something that John even talked about.
Wow.
What I don't understand and I need clarity upon is, whether or not this is an initiative, a regulation, a law that's being proposed. as you can imagine, there is no chance that we could find the ability to site 700 units in the town of Cohasset.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. Because we don't have the land. We don't have the wastewater capacity, and there are other impacts which should come into the mix as well. But that doesn't mean a thing until we fully understand what's going on. I think that's Diane Kennedy. Diane, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, it is Diane.
Star 6. Diane?
Yes.
Oh my! There you go. I thought. Don't worry. Everybody's technologically challenged this morning.
I know.
Apparently.
Go ahead.
Apparently, everybody, not everybody, whoever was supposed to host the meeting is not hosting the meeting. So we don't know who's in waiting rooms or anything.
Okay.
And on top of that, I'm like you. I'm joining by phone because my computer at work is on strike. All right, and then
I'm in my car, and Steve. I'm sorry. I'm in my car, so I'm just going to kind of turn off. But if you have a question directly to me, I'll tune in.
Fair enough. We just wrapped up the review of John Hallen. He was supposed to join us today, but alerted me last week he wouldn't be able to do that. So I did have a conversation. I've just related the nature of the conversation to the trustees on the line, who include Cindy Matheson, Rob Henry, Ted Carr, me, and now you.
And Cindy
Amar is with us as well. Okay.
Got it.
Now, the next item on the agenda is the Affordable Housing Trust request for transfer of land update. Diane knows all too well about this, and I had briefed the committee on this just a little bit earlier. The update is at the moment that there is no update. Apparently, we were on the agenda for the select board meeting last night, and the only problem is that no one let us know about it. I did get an email from the chairman of the select board apologizing for a miscommunication. I personally think it's a lack of communication. But the net result is we're on the next agenda. All right.
Hey, Steve, let's do this. I'll now watch, just because the budget season, I'll watch the agendas and see if there's anything that's relevant to us, and I'll flag it, between now and meeting time, just make sure we're not missing anything.
Yep,
Okay.
that'd be helpful. I had spoken with the town manager about a week and a half ago, and at that point I said, I just want to make sure this doesn't escape. He goes, no, I'll make sure you get on the agenda again for review, because the articles are coming up for review, and that's where he left it. And apparently, yeah, go ahead, Diane.
No, all I was going to say is, since I'm on the board, I get the agendas, and I actually inquired to ensure that Steve had been invited to present, and I was assured he was, and it didn't happen. So I was not happy. Let's just leave it at that. And hopefully, if we all vigilantly watch the agenda, we can make sure that lack of communication doesn't happen again. But I was not a happy camper.
Well, I think it's worthwhile too to just once we find out about it, make sure we, if we can communicate. Ted, if you find out that we're up on an agenda, just communicate it. Back through Lauren, or Lauren and one other person on the trust, so that we can pull some people together to go before the select board. Diane, while we're talking about the subject, let me just ask. My take after our last meeting with the select board was that oh my God, I'm trying to remember the name of the property.
Mill Run
Uh,
and
Mill, yes,
Lane.
the Mill Lane property had, I would say, favorable support by the majority of the board. The Heather Drive property had what appeared to me to be a fairly clear resistance from one member of the board and some serious questions from another.
Okay, I think that's fair, but let me kind of give it some context. I don't think it's
Please do.
I don't think it's the properties as much as we're going to have to be prepared to answer the question, why is this the highest and best use? I think the Heather Drive property, because it's significantly more valuable, and we're really just, our plan is to sell that and put the money into the trust to use on our projects. I think the questions are going to be, yeah, but doesn't the town need the money? What the town could use that 600, 700, whatever it might be. And I think we need to be prepared. My understanding is if the town were to sell it and take the money, it goes in a free cash. So it's not like it's all that easy to take that money and earmark it to something. So I think the resistance, again, is not the properties, but the value and whether that's the kind of highest and best use of the ultimate, cash that value that might come our way. So.
Yeah, I appreciate you adding the context. And that is, it's interesting that the creation of the policies surrounding acquisition and disposition of real property were put together in part by a board. Put together by a board that included both Diane and me. So it's, in the best interest of the town, the goal was to make sure that the town didn't do foolish things with the property it owns. So, and now being on another side of that coin, our objective at this point is to, as Diane points out, make a compelling case for why these properties would fulfill highest and best use for affordable housing.
I have a quick question on that one. Since this is maybe the last time we get to talk about it. Does anybody have any thoughts on how we should answer that? But also I wanted to I think you guys all saw Cindy Amar wrote us a very nice explanation on how to transfer the land, but do we have a quick second to just talk about how we might answer that at next week's meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's that. Yep.
So, I mean, if you read Cindy's note, just sort of paraphrase it, the lands were taken the parcels were taken as tax takings, right? Okay. And that the way I read it, or one explanation is, what is the greatest and best use? So first the town has to decide that these parcels are no longer needed for the general municipal purposes. So they'll have to, decide on that. But these tax taking properties in recent histories are awarded to other people. And the best example to point to is 808 Jerusalem Road. So the argument I might make is we're exactly the right place to try to do something with this property that has now been deemed not in the municipal purposes of the town. And that would be, we have the precedent to show you an example of how we will make it the greatest and best use. And that's why the Affordable Housing Trust should be the ward of the property. That would be part of the talking points I might think about.
Yeah, no, and I think some of the more reflexive counterpoints that we'll receive are, well, why shouldn't this go to funding another project, a different project? And my argument from that perspective is that, money is fungible, so effectively it could. right? If we are to take in a property and sell it for cash, we can do so with expedience where the town probably can't move nearly as quickly.
Mm-hmm.
We can apply those funds with expedience where the town can't. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just it's the law, right? And I mapped this out, I think, with you, Ted, and Diane, but just so that everybody recognizes it. Let's say that the select board decides to keep the property and sell it. They have to go through a 30B process, right? Request for bid, right, or request for proposal. They find one, they select it. By that time, moving with incredible haste. By that time, the end of the selection period is probably close to the end of October 2022. Right? They alert the winning bidder, set up a closing structure. That's a good 60 days. Why? Because nothing moves fast, Rob Henry. All right. Now you're at the end of December. Good news. The property's closed upon. By the way, Diane, at any point you can stop laughing about this aggressive time schedule. All right. You're at the end of December 2022. Now what? Well, now you've got to wait until the fiscal year closes, June 30th, 2023. When the fiscal year closes, that money, because it flowed into the general fund, that money would be identified amongst the pool of unrestricted funds, what used to be called free cash. Free cash can only be allocated at the recommendation of the select board to town meeting. So town meeting votes on that, typically in the fall at special town meeting. So you sold the property, you reached agreement on it in October of 2022. You're able to release the funds to specific purposes in 2023, a year later.
Good point.
Highest and best use. I mean, that's practical. Now, meantime, if that money were to flow to the trust, the trust would go through some similar process to find the best price for that land, reach an agreement, sell it, put the funds in the trust, and get to work on whatever project we would be getting to work on immediately. In the meantime, and we're going to brief you on this in just a second, in the meantime, that gives us some funding that we will not need to ask for from our primary benefactor, CPC. That's primary benefactor at the moment, right? Mm-hmm. We'd like to spread that out. But right now, that's the practical matter. So that leaves CPC's unencumbered funds at a higher level available for distribution. So to me, that is a complementary comment to yours, Ted.
Yeah, good point.
Okay, it's not superior. It's complementary. I mean, there's a practical matter as to how the town can apply funds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In the meantime, by comparison, imagine that we went to, we went through special town meeting and then to annual town meeting, and we didn't have to ask for additional funds from CPC, which then would allow for expanded funding of other projects that might include baseball fields, athletic fields generally, additional funds to town hall preservation, etc. So. That's some of my thinking. I'd like to make sure that our justification, because I think it primarily surrounds something that we would sell for cash as opposed to seek development for. Our justification should be surrounding any element of highest and best use we can think of. And I think you're right, Ted. It starts with the notion that it is, that property is no longer necessary for general municipal purposes. Well, what's been its primary purpose up to this point?
Nothing.
I think that's a fair question. Right.
Yeah.
There has been no purpose. Right. And as a matter of fact, what we're asking to do is return it to the tax rolls. interestingly enough, even if we developed it, not even, especially if we were to be able to develop Mill Lane, likewise, we would be returning properties to the tax rolls. Just because they're deed restricted doesn't mean they're not taxable.
Cindy. Yep.
Thoughts,
First-
anybody?
Cindy Amara had her hand up, and I wanted to defer if there was something that you wanted to add.
Sorry, Cindy. I can't see you, so yeah,
Okay.
please. We're more free for all today, so go ahead and butt in.
I'll butt in. The only thing I would add is on that same vein, if it's property sitting for general municipal purposes and they sell it without a real plan, like you said, it goes into the general municipal fund and it gets diluted. If it gets transferred to the Affordable Housing Trust, there's a set number for a specific purpose. So the value of that sale doesn't get diluted by, spreading it out among all sorts of different means of using it. And I think that's a benefit as well.
That's a key point.
Key point. Yeah.
So that's what I would want to build on from when Steve and I were at the CPC meeting. The one thing that came off clear is all of the arguments that Steve is making and that Cindy's supporting is completely logical, but it was clear the members of this current CPC don't fully understand the use and unique character of the Affordable Housing Trust. So it was kind of a little bit of a wake up call to thinking how we're going to present this and Steve's made the perfect outline for why, it's why we have the ability to put it to the best use of all. But it definitely is going to take some thought and work talking to the members of these other committees and then the select board to explain a lot of this, because they see clearly CPC board members, or not all of them, but a lot of the new ones in particular, see affordable housing as just like any other local group coming to them with asking money for projects.
I think Cindy, we'll get into this in just a minute, but Cindy made this observation. By the way, we managed to get onto a CPC agenda, which was helpful. But ultimately, what Cindy is observing is exactly that. CPC often sees transactional people come before them. We need $25,000 to do this, and we need $100,000 to do that, and it's transactional, right? Like a bank would be transactional on a loan. There's less of an understanding of working with us as a as a process-oriented activity, and that's the way I would seek to describe the trust. Yes, transactions are part of what we do, whether that's underwriting some support for Shivo, or giving a discretionary grant to Habitat for Humanity, right, for development of housing. Those are transactions within a longer process that is effectively defined by our objectives. Create, maintain, expand affordable housing units within the town of Cohasset. So there's there's truly a mission that we're on, and that's not well understood. That the reason we keep coming back and saying, look, we want a bigger pot of money, and they did not really understand that.
Right.
We'll get into that here in just a second, because I realize I'm varying from the agenda by a bit.
One more thing on this, Steve. The other difference is that we are getting this money to fulfill the requirement of 40B, which is a law. And when people are asking for other projects, it's not to meet a law. That we have to. That's our overriding goal. And we have to meet the proper numbers for 40B. So that's why another distinction between our requesting or wanting money versus all these other reasons that the CPC may look at, different projects.
Yeah, I would argue, and argue is not really the word that I should be using, but I would argue that the law is, as you're defining it, the MGL 40B definitions are that. Remember, those are our baseline, right? Those are our minimum standards, and I think it buttresses your point to make that observation. Those are the minimum standards. And by the way, as we've all talked about, those really have very little to do with how affordable the town is. I mean, when you can take 5 apartments and count them as 25 apartments or 20 apartments, that's really nice. But you don't really have 20 living units that are affordable.
Right.
So I'd simply make that point, right? Rob, the 40B is minimum performance. If you think about it, that's C-. That's the way I would look at it. And
having that.
Yeah, and then anyway, forgive me. I'm in my haste. I managed to simply lose my my agenda. I'm trying to work from my phone. I got to tell you, I always thought I was pretty technologically proficient.
Well, you've been
Apparently.
updating on the transfer of land discussion, and we jumped a little bit into the CPC, which was the next item on the agenda.
All right. Well, yeah. Let's stop for just a second and make sure that we're all good with we're all comfortable with the points that we've identified up to this point for the transfer of land
Definitely.
discussion.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I do know that we are to be booked onto the next select board agenda.
When
I
is
don't
that?
know when.
Ah.
Diane, do you know?
He's on mute again and camera's on. Oh, he's back.
I tell you what. I'd have to assume, Diane, you're there.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that. Our next meeting is next week,
Okay.
What
All right,
day of
so
the week do you do it?
Tuesday.
Tuesdays.
So it would
Tuesdays.
be
Okay.
Tuesday, what is it, the 8th or something?
15th.
Or today's the
March
8th or whatever.
It'll be March 15th.
15th.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just want to say that I'm walking into work. Technically, according to open meeting law, I'm supposed to have my video on to be here. And so that's why I ended up turning it on when I realized that, because I squawk about people that keep their videos off during meetings. But I am going to turn it off while I walk to my office. So.
Thanks.
Okay. We'll move. Then if we're comfortable with the discussion that we've had to this point, then let's move on to the next item, which is the CPC meeting update. Just one last thought, though, before we do leave this. Ted, I'm sorry, Cindy, since you and Ted are both furiously copying these notes, as soon as we can circulate the draft minutes for review, please do so, because it's going to inform us with respect to our conversation with the select board.
Gotcha.
And if I may ask, if each of your schedules allow, typically the select board meeting starts around 7. I don't know where we're going to end up on the agenda, but if you can plan to attend on the 15th, each member that's here now, I'd appreciate it.
As many as possible then.
Well, I don't want to necessarily. We won't need to file for open meeting if we're attending another posted meeting. I'm not looking to gang up, but I do want to make certain that what we continue to present to any committee is that the trust is an effective body.
Yep.
Right. So I'd rather not have single faces showing up.
Gotcha.
Okay. And not just faces. I mean, I want to make sure that each of us has it takes a part in representing our, the position of the trust.
And Steve,
So,
I'd like to be
if
there,
you're-
but I'm on vacation next week, so I'm not available.
Oh, you lucky bum. All right. Thank you, Rob.
You could have said lucky.
So,
man.
well, fair enough, but look, as long as you're not going to the Black Sea, you're probably going to have an enjoyable vacation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So then we'll plan. The three of us will plan on attending. Diane will be there, but of course, as a member of the select board.
And Tom Mee will not be in town either. So.
Right. And I can try and contact our others, but right now let's just leave it at this. Okay. Leave it at us three, and we'll be thinking of you on vacation, Rob.
Thank you.
We had an opportunity to meet with CPC, again, a last-minute dance. This is something we had discussed in a prior meeting, so I did ask to be put on the agenda, and Cindy Matheson was able to join me to go to that meeting. Cindy, do you want to sum up the outcomes?
Well, as far as I understood it, we asked for 500,000 and they were a little hesitant to give us all of that in one lump sum. Again, back to the thinking of in terms of the transactional nature of most of the projects that come before them, certain members wanted to see essentially progress reports back from the Housing Trust before dispersing additional money. So my understanding is they approved 500,000 that would go to town meeting, but that it would be dispersed in starting with 250,000 without restriction. And then the second portion after we gave them a report back on some of our progress is how I understood it. Please help me.
No, that's a bit. That wraps it up. Remember, the CPC has consistently been big supporters of affordable housing. There are some newer members on CPC now, and they were reluctant to commit to the request of $500,000, and they asked some very good questions, some very insightful questions. What's the trust balance now? What will you use it for? Right? And one of the things to keep in mind is that those base questions are quite relevant, but there is, and this is the part where Cindy was alluding to, there are any number of areas in which we will need capital, whether that's development of a property or subsidy stacking, as we've talked about in the past, or potentially being a loan guarantor, or other items, right? Where we'll need balances, but we can't identify them specifically either by amount or application today. But we know we need the capital, and we have no other place to get it. By that I'm not talking about CPC, but we have no other place to get it from whatever is the balance in our trust. Potentially, we could apply or help to apply for grants, but the fact of the matter is that those are long lead times. So right now, we have to depend upon how much we can build into that trust balance. Ultimately, the vote of the CPC, when hearing the explanation that I just gave you, the vote of the CPC was to commit to $250,000 with a total commitment of $500,000. The other $250,000 being contingent upon, coming to them with a demonstrated need for fulfillment. All right, but they kept referring to it as, and I did find that funny. When you get the bills, you come to us with the bills, and we'll give you the money. They don't seem to realize that it's, we don't get construction invoices, but nonetheless, it was demonstrative of a group of people who are grappling with understanding that we are, in effect, looking to amass a pool of money to support what we anticipate to be a variety of activities, none of which is particularly clearly defined at the moment.
And I think part of the issue was looking, when they asked what our budget was, or what we had in the bank right now, around 825 with roughly 75, about 75,000 of that already sort of allocated, just not dispersed. They see that with an additional 500,000 pushing us into over $1 million, and that seems like a whole large amount of money. However, if it's put in the context of the housing market the way it is right now in a place like Cohasset, that's, that seems like that's only the minimum to be able to stay in the game with the things that we need in order to go forward, competing in the private market for
And there was,
affordable housing opportunities that come up.
yeah, and there was another big part of this, which we talked about when our inaugural meetings that we had, is that we need the money in there because we may have to make quick decisions to grab something.
Precisely.
That's really what they have to understand.
Yeah,
We
right.
don't
The
have to-
Yes,
unique
it's-
nature,
Like the
yeah,
rest of the town
and the
does.
immediacy.
We might have to make a quick decision, and we can't fool around with that.
Right. And you don't have credibility if you don't have at least a large pool of funds to start with.
Right.
That's the case. So that was the explanation we had given for our uses of funds. The result, as we described, was what I can only say is a good response, but one that is becoming a bit more reluctant to help us build a war chest, right? And that's, in those are my words, but ultimately that's what I'm asking for when we go before the CPC to ask for funds. That's ultimately what we're asking for when we're looking for these land transfers, is the assistance in building balances necessary to be able to take decisive action as market opportunities present themselves, or to be able to take decisive actions as we are asked to participate in development of affordable housing units.
Steve, can I have a question about, so after we had made the purchase of 808 that had been transferred, then there was another opportunity, there was another piece of property adjacent that suddenly came onto the market. And
Yes.
we couldn't move fast enough to get that. Is that knowledge, and can we use that as an example of why we would need the money? Just back to Rob Henry's point about, we gotta have the money to go
Cindy,
fast.
you could, but here's the problem with that process. We were told by the realtor that the adjacent property would be available. Would we like to look at it? We responded immediately, yes. Okay, we would like to look at it. But the we part of it was not going to be a quorum of the trust, but rather a trust member or two who could review the property, evaluate the possibilities, and report back to the trust if necessary with an emergency meeting. All right. No, that's not a problem. The point is, what the realtor understood is, we'd like to look at the property, arrange time. Between that phone call and 24 hours later, they had already moved the property to a buyer.
Okay.
Okay, and so we had no chance to act on it, and that had nothing to do with funding.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, so I don't think it would support our discussion point.
It demonstrates the need to be able to move quickly and efficiently, but it doesn't, in this case, it wouldn't have made a difference. I follow.
Yep. Okay. Who's got the agenda in front of them? Because I am, at this point, I'm blind. So, and I know I do have a 10 o'clock that I have to go to.
The next
Project
one,
updates or discussion of the goals and updates.
goals and updates. First one was Project Pipeline, Tom Mead, Rob Henry.
Okay, and Rob, I know you just received it. We all just received it this morning. Can you just give us a synopsis at this point?
Yeah, I think let me read this one paragraph, which I agree with. I mean, we had talked about it, but he said he was going to do this first draft, which he did, but I didn't get to this morning. So It's just in terms of, he sent a spreadsheet and it's accurate for the most part of the, all the existing, the inventory of what we have, which includes, we were talking about 808 Stasco, South Main Street, Cohasset Hospitality Partners, Pleasant Street, Heather Drive, Mill Lane, and then 2 confidential addresses of town-owned land. I'm not sure. We know what that is
Yes.
exactly. Or I don't know, let's put it that way. And then, so the,
Well,
what, go ahead.
right, go ahead.
No,
Nope,
so
after you.
He makes a comment, we, you know, it's a first draft. And it should be, and what he did is he put it into an Excel spreadsheet so that we can, you know, we can add and subtract and make changes and so forth as we go along. So all that is, I think, good. I'll just read this one paragraph. It's not that long. This isn't really meant to be a public / shared document. I think we should keep it updated in a way that if it ever needed to be posted or was requested by a member of the public, there would be no harm. Note that some addresses are marked confidential and the only information actually included on the sheet, meaning the Excel spreadsheet, is public information anyway. But this is not a policy document or shared resource for the trust. The suggestion would be for this to be maintained by one person with another person as backup. The keeper of the document would work directly with Lauren Lynn to make sure we have the most up-to-date information on status of approvals / permits, progress, etc., and then use the Excel sheet as a tracking mechanism and provide updates to the trust at the monthly meetings. So I think that kind of tells what the purpose of this spreadsheet is. And so does that all make sense, everybody?
Yep.
Yep.
It makes sense.
Okay.
Go ahead. Ted, were you about to say something?
No,
Okay. All right. The second item that had come up, because I do want to, I imagine we are going to talk a little bit further about the information on this draft. And
I mean, that's really it. It's not something that's complicated. We just tell them, like I said, we want to make something that's easy to use and it's fluid, so we can keep, you know, make the changes as things go along. And then, you know, just every month we go over it and develop any action items. And of course, that's how the basis of developing our objectives and finding our goals.
right. Yeah, I imagine we're going to. This will probably show up on the next agenda for further discussion, because I want to make sure that.
Yeah, be good. It should be put on the agenda. I don't know who sets the agenda now. Lauren, somebody has to tell her.
Me.
You, okay.
Yeah, the chair. By the way, just because someday each of you ends up serving as the chairman of the committee. The most important job the chairman has is the agenda. Yeah, it's delegation. That's right. Yeah, it's the agenda, because without, the agenda is what organizes your activity. So just all right.
can I make a quick
Communication
suggestion?
plan.
Can I, just because I think I heard, Steve, you had to leave at 10.
Right.
Can I suggest we just go maybe slightly out of order, because there's two things I think that we need to vote on. One is minutes and one is a bill to be paid. So do we want to do that before you have to run off, or so we have a quorum, or what do you think?
I tell you what, let's Cindy Amari, you're still hanging around, right?
I am
Yep.
still here.
Okay. Tell you what, before Cindy, would you simply give us in a moment, give us an update on your findings, even though we did see it in writing. If there's any color to add to it, please let us know with respect to the two parcels that we're discussing. And Ted, since you have it in front of you, can you describe for the folks like me who are not on video what the invoice is, and let's move that for payment.
Yeah. Okay. Cindy, you want to go first, or?
Yeah, no, I'm actually getting her paid first.
Oh, okay. Good, hold on, stand by.
And I'm trying to find my email, so on my phone,
Hold
so.
Okay, hold on. I gotta- Okay, so the law firm has presented a bill in a timely manner for $337.50 for services filed with the town on February 3rd. Everything seems to be in order, so I'd like to move that we approve the bill.
Second,
Second,
Yep. Okay, by roll, Ted Carr,
Ted Carr, aye.
Rob Henry,
Rob Henry, aye.
Cindy Matheson,
Cindy Matheson, aye.
Steve Gomer, aye. All right. Yay! Now that we've funded two lunches and a small dinner for the law firm. Cindy, can you give us any additional color on your findings on these two parcels?
No, they're pretty vanilla in terms of the process, and it's pretty much identical to what you did with 808 Jerusalem Road. You know, in terms of the actual parcels themselves, they're, you know, the right of redemption of each parcel has been foreclosed and properly recorded, so they're good to go if that's what the town wants to do. I believe I saw a draft of a town meeting warrant article, if I'm not mistaken, prepared by town council. So it seems like they're at least preparing to put this forward.
Okay.
That's
Great.
But I really have no, I mean, it's a pretty basic, they have to vote to declare it no longer needed. And once they do, you put an article on and see what happens. And 808 Jerusalem Road was a pretty good roadmap you guys have done already.
Okay. Thank you.
Certainly.
Okay, now jumping back, communication plan. Cindy and Ted Carr.
Oh,
So
Cindy's done a wonderful job. So
I put a lot of words down on paper trying to organize thoughts. And so I just started, I did send a copy. I think you and Steve, you and Ted might have one. It's not really ready for prime time, but the general gist is thinking what our mission is, what are our business goals for 2022, how do we want to communicate with basically the boards, the citizens in the town, as well as outside stakeholders. So from there, I kind of grouped it into the information we want to put out in terms of general ideas, like how do we explain in the best and simplest possible terms to the people of Cohasset how we operate, why we're effective, and what the unique capabilities of the Affordable Housing Trust are. And I started just by listing out things from the Mass Public Housing document as to what affordable housing committees can do, and some of the items specifically that we're using or we're interested in. So the challenge is going to be how to summarize those down into meaningful context to be able to convey to people like members of the CPC or townspeople when we go to town meeting and make the case for why this land transfer would be the best use with the AHT. And then the second half looks at specific audience members, like do we have information we want to continue to share with targeted groups such as town boards like the select board, the CPC, advisory, planning, zoning. Do we have unique items that we want to be sure that we're continuously sending and keeping them updated and informed on? So we have an audience, we want to think about the information to share, and then what are the best channels to use in order to get that information to them? Is it email updates, social media, personal contact? I don't know. This is the part that I'm not a communications expert, so it will require some group discussion. And what's the frequency with which we want to keep people updated? So the stakeholders or the audiences I included here were, again, the town boards, the citizens in general, the citizens when we go to town meetings specifically or who are in attendance, potential developers, nonprofit, for-profit developers, what information do we want to be getting out to them? Financial institutions, we've talked a lot about all of this in the strategic vision that we created, as well as the goals and objectives that we discussed at the last meeting. Another would be state and local organizations. How do we want to maintain our contact there? State elected officials, how do we maintain, what do we want to share with Joan Moschino and Patrick O'Connor, and getting information back, for example, on whatever has come up regarding affordable housing around municipal transit agencies. And then finally, the last one I was identifying would be local landowners. If we're trying to be sure that we communicate what we can do, if they're thinking of selling property, would they consider it deed restricted and so forth. So we'd like to be able to have some way of promoting or making contact information available for what Affordable Housing Trust can do there. And then the final piece is, if we're getting the information out, what are the channels, or how do we go about being sure that we're getting useful information back in, useful feedback from, say, someone who was on a CPC board? How are they perceiving it? Just giving us general, either good information, criticism, whatever we need to be sure that we're completing the loop of communication. So that's a general outline, but I think it's going to take some more work and discussion.
First of all, good work.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, no, it's a big deal. I think that's actually, you identified something, and it's come up a couple of times now, and we really should focus on how we do that. And that is, how do you communicate with property owners in a way that allows them to view, still another possibility for, for creating liquidity on what they own.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you can sell it, you can develop it, you can do a million things, but have you thought about involving us, the trust? And that can be fairly powerful for some folks. I am not a tax expert. God knows Cindy Amara can underscore this. I'm not a legal expert. But I do know enough to recognize that you can often exchange value for in a property you own, the value that's short of fair market value, and so long as the right party, the proper parties are engaged, that can lead to tax benefits for you, for the property owner. So we have a lot to offer, and at this point we haven't defined any of that to anybody other than ourselves. Mm-hmm. So let's plan on exploring this further as a much more in-depth conversation in our very next meeting. I apologize, by the way, that this one is so chaotic, but
It's your control, Steve. You don't be apologizing.
Kind of fun.
Well, at the moment I'm looking out at the Charles River. It's a beautiful view because I'm not looking at any of you guys. Anyway, this is as important as financing is, as important as it is to recognize what our priorities are with respect to existing projects. Success for the trust over the long haul is really built on this element, on communication, because otherwise, all the endeavors we have are going to be a repetitive battle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if we have to go in front of the CPC every single year and justify why we need money, what our existence is, et cetera, if we have to go before the townspeople to help them recognize that affordable housing, to Rob's point, is a requirement, it's not a nice thing, right? And the town adopted this approach to be able to manage its affordable housing requirements in a way that integrates into our community as rather than having it as an overlay or forced on us by an outside party. If we don't continue that communication, then we're always going to fight a battle at town meeting, at special town meeting, on land transfers, on, cooperation with, the Board of Selectmen, which, by the way, changes every single year, right? By its very nature. Every single year, every single election brings with it the likelihood that you have a new composition. So the communication piece is really critical. allowing the trust in the long term to effectively function without having to recreate the wheel every time a major funding transaction opportunity arises. So,
Can I make
yeah,
just
I
one
think it's
point
pretty
that-
important.
That goes back, we're not going through maybe the minutes today, but Cindy, when you did the minutes, and in the goal number 2, you said, let town recognize the progress of AHT. I think it doesn't matter about correcting that's not what I really said. I think it's really a PR marketing communications program established to inform the town and town officials of what is going on with AHT. This really is a marketing communications program.
I totally agree with you. And that is not something I'm an expert at. I can help organize and think about what we want to communicate. I have no background in marketing or PR. So I'm looking for that.
You already started
feedback.
doing that actually, because a nice write-up. But I think if you entitle it correctly, then we all can, help with that. Because
Mhm.
this really is.
Yeah, Ed, well,
it's a PR
yeah, that,
marketing communications program established to inform the town and town officials, and you can list all these other people too, developers and everything else, about what the Affordable Housing Trust is doing on a regular basis.
a couple things to keep in mind, to Rob's point and to yours, Cindy, is that you do have one person that's highly experienced in public relations already on the trust, Ted. I actually did have some time. I had about 8 years in the advertising world, which was a lot of fun. Yeah.
And I've done marketing, sales, advertising all my career. So I mean, we all have
Right.
enough to be dangerous, and maybe together we'll be very effective.
Yeah, there's a skill set that can be applied within the trust, and I'm not saying that we can't end up, we might not end up using other hands, but I would actually say, Cynthia, this strikes me as a project not unlike the one that you and Chris Odleyson started, and then
Chris, I came in much later, so I can't take credit for the formation there.
Well, no, not the formation, not the formation, but the messaging. That element, in the Education Foundation is, it's still alive and well today.
Yes.
The communication element, right? And that's a big deal, right?
Yeah, but I cannot take credit for that.
No. Yeah, you can though recognize that you were part and parcel of making sure that it continued in an effective manner.
I can
right?
say that.
Yes, you can. And anyway, my point in all of that is that this is important. I do believe we have the capability, and we've got a number of people on it, a number of people on the trust on this call at the moment who are willing to, actively participate.
Steve,
Ted, yep, go ahead.
Can I just say really quick, so how I would like to do it, given the constraints of open meetings, if Ted and I can work tightly together and then bring it back, I can help structure. I fully recognize and need the collective wisdom of the trust to be able to make this thing work. So if we'll just continue on this path. Ted and I will follow through and bring it to the board, and then get your input, get Rob's input, get Tom's, that is so valuable.
Yes. Give me just a second. I'll be right back.
Cindy, I wouldn't mind being included in seeing drafts of it as well.
Awesome.
That would be, because then I'll be able to be of more assistance, because I'll have a better idea of what you're talking about when you're talking about it.
That'd be great.
Thanks.
I'll send you what I have together as soon as we're off the meeting, so you know where we're coming from, and hopefully it will evolve from.
Would you send it to me too?
Okay.
I can't, I think it has to come, how do I send it without breaking open meeting laws? That was my hesitancy in not sending it out to everybody on the board. I think I have to send it to Warren, right?
It's not, it's for review. It's not really a policy or anything yet. It's just you're looking for input, right?
Well, the open meeting law is pretty specific.
Cindy Amar's got her hand up. Hang on one second.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I think you can probably send it to me and I can send it to you for your
Yes.
independent thoughts back to me. And you just can't have a serial communication amongst yourself. So
Okay.
that's one
Right.
advantage to having me in the loop as well.
Gotcha.
Okay.
That
Then
sounds
I'll
great.
wait to
Yeah.
get it from you.
Perfect.
Just don't talk to each other about it.
Gotcha. Yes, that was my concern.
Yeah.
Ted and I can talk, but I can't talk with everybody in the whole group.
Correct.
Right. The deliberation of the trust as a public body has to take place in open session,
Exactly.
except when you can do it in executive session. So, guys, forgive me. I've got to go, and in departing, I will take away the quorum.
Okay.
I've got a client that's already calling me saying, "Where the hell are you?"
Is there any
Anyway,
reason we can't, why don't we just adjourn? Because I think we've got,
right. Well, I just want to give you one other item before we adjourn, because we don't have any minutes to approve at the moment. The next identified meeting is right in front of you on April. What is it? Bear with me here. April
Did-
13.
there were minutes in our packet, I thought, but
I thought.
Okay, there were then. Then if we can, let's we can defer approving them. I do have
Let's
to go.
defer,
The financing plan I was going to describe to you verbally. If you're all right with it, let's hold off till next meeting because part of that financing plan was understanding land transfer. So by next meeting, we'll have a better understanding of what that means too.
okay.
Okay.
So I move we
All right.
adjourn.
Second? Anybody second?
Second.
Okay. By roll? Ted Carr?
Aye.
Okay. Rob Henry?
Rob Henry, aye.
Cindy Matheson?
Cindy Mathis and I.
Steve Gomer, aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, Cindy Amara, for joining us once again.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having me. Have a good one.
All right.
You
Hey,
too.
Cindy,
You too, guys. Bye-bye.
Cindy, I'll give you a call in just a few minutes.
Sounds good.
Okay, thanks. Bye.